Architect Sapumal Bandara graduated from the University of Moratuwa, and he is an associate member of the Sri Lanka Institute of Architects and an associate life member of the Organization of Professional Associations of Sri Lanka. Further, he is a visiting lecturer at University of Moratuwa, City School of Architecture, Kothalawala Defence University and Gampaha Wickramarachchi University of Indigenous Medicine. He has also served as a community architect, landscape architect and urban planner for the University of Moratuwa. He is also the senior project architect and project manager for the ITC Colombo One Mix Development Project at Surat Wickramasinghe Associates and at a $750 million strategic development foreign direct investment project. He has also worked in collaboration with the many international and local consultant firms, developers, investors and constructors in various prestigious hotels, residential, administrative, community, commercial and residential projects. He has received multiple local and international awards such as Joint Asia Winner for Children Resource Center, Architects Regional Council of Asia and JK Cement Architect of the Year Award, Foreign Countries Commendation Award of the project, The Pavilion in Kurunegala. Further, he has demonstrated his capabilities in many dimensions such as a senior architect, urban designer, project manager, BMI manager. He is also an author and a public speaker on architecture, natural habitat, heritage and conservation, condominium living, social sustainability, psychology, architecture and etc. It's my pleasure to welcome Architect Sapumal Bandara on stage for your presentation.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. So our topic could be psychological, it's mainly physical, social and psychological well-being through architecture. So before all of that, we'll say Ayubowan, because our theme for this year from our institute is the well-being and architecture and well-being. That's the main theme of the entire session and entire exhibition and everything. We are talking about this thing, and since we are going ahead with this, so we thought of discussing something related to that and how and what we can do as architects, and maybe even the general public can know what is their ability to do with this subject when they are designing buildings, or when they are getting architects to design buildings, and when they are building. So what's so we will just see what's well-being. So well-being is not just the absence of disease or illness. So usually you can say without having a disease is well-being. It's not only that. So it's a complex combination of person's physical, mental, emotional and social health. So it's something to do with your life. නිකන් හිතුවොත් ශාරීරික, මානසික, සමාජීය යෝග්‍යතාවය මේ ටික ඔක්කොම එකතු වුණාම තමයි we call it well-being. ඒ කියන්නේ සුවතාවය, ශාරීරික සුවතාවය, මානසික සුවතාවය, ඒ හැමදේම එකතු වුණා. Then the built environment. The built environment is what we build right around us. So that we call built environment. That can be a house, a building or whatever, an office space or whatever. The spaces that we are surrounded with, which we design and we build. So those are man-made structures, features, facilities. Those are collective environmental elements which are man-made mostly. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි විසින් හදාගන්නා ලද වටපිටාව. So there are 7 dimensions of well-being: physical, psychological, intellectual, social, spiritual, environmental and occupational. So out of all these, I'll be discussing only on the physical, psychological and the social aspects. මේ ලක්ෂණ ටික ඔයගොල්ලන්ට තේරෙනවා ඇති. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් well-being කියන සුවතාවය කියන කාරණාව ගත්තාම අදාළ කාරණා ටිකෙන් අපි මූලික කරුණු 3ක් ගැන තමයි පෙන්වන්න හදන්නේ. එතකොට the physical dimension is it's known to you, how to keep your fitness and now to keep going, do exercises. So we are a set of community and a evolving community. So we have all these characteristics in our day-to-day lives. So we are farmers and we are living in the urban situation. So there are people who are doing their physical exercises in a different way. Some exercises are in their habitual life at itself, because those items, those exercises and the activities are in their day-to-day lives. But nowadays what we are facing these days is a different scenario. We do our our working environment is a different setup, not what we were inherited from our history or whatever. So we are mostly limited to our office spaces or else to our computers or whatever the electronic devices. So in that event, so we have to search for the physical well-being in a different way. And the social dimension, that's once again it's a need to our society, because most of the time the you can't get isolated in one of maybe inside your room or maybe to a small screen, because ultimately that is not the life, because definitely you will need the social interaction with the human beings and the other animals maybe. So sometimes you will need that. So from starting from our historical scenario, you may have seen all these elements like Ambalamas and Kadamandiya, and the same setup we are experiencing nowadays in a different version. Maybe it can be a food festival, or maybe a pub, or maybe something different aspect, but the same thing that we are doing, the social interaction. And the other thing is the psychological dimension. Ultimately, what we feel inside us and what we express within us, and what we finally what we are trying to end up. Maybe there are many people with different religious backgrounds, Buddhist or many other religious aspects, or maybe, but whatever we are seeking within ourselves will be the final aspect, because ultimately that is something everybody is looking for. So even well-being and built environment, both these aspects are in the similar setup. Interconnection would be once and for all, as I discussed, the 7 elements, and finally the man-made structures and features and the facilities that we are trying to achieve, these well-being factors through those. Mainly, Panchendriya. Now we know Panchendriya very well. So all these senses are the elements that we are expecting in any human body, or maybe even the other animals, to experience the built environment and all these other connectivities. So the vision, hearing, smell, taste and touch, that all of you are well aware about that. Maybe you must be wondering what is the interconnectivity with the built environment and the taste. You can't eat any material or any space and see. But ultimately, when you experience in something, sometimes, let's say you have a sofa looking at a river or something, sometimes you will need a coffee or something similar drink to enjoy that view and maybe to enjoy that space. That's where all these 5 senses will be start to work. So likewise, so that's something captured my eye with this picture, the well-being and architecture. So you can see in this picture there are many aspects. You can see something far away, and there's a built environment inside, and that's where you are doing your yoga practice or whatever. And you can see there are sticks, the incense sticks lit, that you get the smell, or maybe sometimes you will be enjoying something else as well. So but this is something to do with architecture and well-being, and then the final output, the interconnectivity between you and your surrounding. So in that event, so those are the initial ideas that we were discussing, but finally what I am trying to show you is, with couple of projects that we have done, how best that we can achieve these environmental conditions and the situations that we were discussing. So this project is situated in a very tight urban environment in Kalubowila, but you can see the density. So that this is where we are heading now, 8.9 perch. So there are plots even smaller than this. So minimum now they have allocated 6 perches as per the regulations, but the density is getting smaller, and the density is getting bigger, and but the land plots are getting very smaller. So then what we have to try is, maybe we have to try and do something innovative to be within that space, and then try your best to achieve your well-being inside that small area, because nowadays you don't get very big lands. So this is where we are heading to. So the area is very small. So the main focus, I'll tell you, in this, the land is such 8.9, but the built-up area is about one third of the land. So the 2/3 of the land is given for the garden, mainly in the garden area, and then there are vegetation. So to do that, the requirements are very small. The minimum requirements, and then the other elements that you, as our president previously said in his previous presentation, to keep your requirements to the minimum stage without going to the maximum brief, that maximum requirement that you will be looking for a development, or maybe to at least to build your house. Keep your requirements very basic and minimum. That's where you can achieve these type of buildings, and at the same time you can, as he said also, you can save a lot of money. And as my discussion, you will achieve your well-being. That is the most important thing, because you will end up with building this as per your requirements. So as you see, this building is just 3-bedroom house, and that is basically with the requirements of the user, and having these minimum requirements. So spaces, of course, you can see from the drawings, and you can see the amount of greenery that we have kept without building up to the right next to our regulatory framework. Now, as you know, the regulatory frameworks are mainly to control you, at the same time to give some well-being to you. Fresh air, natural light and ventilation, and all these other cross ventilation. So various aspects are considered when you are adhering to a building regulation. But those are the minimum requirements that will be governed by the UDA or whatever the local authority. But ultimately you can take a call whether are we sticking to that particular line. If you have a street line or a building line, are we building up to that point, or else can we do some can we take a bold decision and at least make some area landscaped up, or maybe you can keep it as a green space. That will help you for your well-being. That will bring eliminate the carbon dioxide, and you will get some fresh air, you get some good oxygen. So you can do that. So that is up to you, whether you are building up to the edge, or you take a decision, a bold decision, keep your requirements minimum and introduce some greenery, some ground. And at the same time, most of the time you will need a soil. Otherwise, even if you are going up for a multi-story apartment complex, you will need common spaces. Otherwise you can't live. You can't just sit in your luxurious apartment, but still you need a play area, still you need some ground, you need some cultivation, no vegetation. You can't be away from that. So that's why this is very important. So I'll just pass through with the just basic drawings. So it's a area like this. So at the setback also, again, once again, when you are giving ventilation and natural light and ventilation, the angles and light angles and the areas that you are keeping from the road frontage are very important. So then it will help for you to get the natural light and ventilation in a proper way. So the internal spaces, of course, once again, main focus is the garden. So that's the main area inside this property. So everybody inside the building will be focusing towards the garden, not to the building. The building is there as an envelope, so it's housing your daily activities, but the main focus would be the garden. So even the other aspect is the finishes and the other textures. Mostly now, when you are talking about the mental well-being and the psychological well-being, definitely we are some set of species that we are inheriting from our, what could I say? We are coming from the stone age. Definitely, we are evolving, but still we have those connections, the biophilic connections that we were inherited, and from that period of time, we like these trees. We like the textures, the natural textures. We like all the finishes, and we need like natural foliage, and all these aspects are very critical in our lifestyles. That's when that is missing, so we are stressed. Most of the time we should get in touch with the nature. That's what we are trying to do. Most of the time, if you are hectic, you will go on a trip. So that's why we need that break. So you will be going on a trip, or maybe to a sanctuary, or maybe to a resort. That's what we are seeking for. So the same scenario, we are trying our best to keep our greenery as much as possible. So these I'll be passing through some images that you can get a proper idea about the project. So that's the originally designed building, and before it was started using by the user. So now it is transforming. We can see the garden before. Since we have kept a particular big portion of land as a garden, now it's evolving. These are the interventions by the user. So they will be planting trees, or maybe they can grow potato, anything. So they can do anything within their premises. So that's something to do with the relaxation, or maybe your well-being. So it will help to increase your physical well-being, mental well-being, as well as your interaction. Maybe your family members, so they will start chipping, and they will bring various types of plants from various parts of the world. But ultimately, so it's an interaction. So that is where it is transforming. So the spaces that you create, spaces that you start with, so that will transform and evolve with the time. So this is where your well-being starting from, and definitely you will need some greenery, as I said, within your built physics and the built environment. You can't just forget the natural setup and just be with only with the built setup. So you will need certain elements to be incorporated like this. So it's now evolving. The building is evolving. Right. So that's that. So that's with the urban setup. So we will be just moving to another project. Once again, it's in a suburban area. So the project name is the Pavilion, and so it's a big property. But ultimately, what we are trying to say is, the same setup, same scenario, what you can do with your building and the natural setup to achieve the well-being. So you can understand the magnitude and the size of the plot. So it's facing a lake ultimately. So this is a cross section from the road to the lake, and where the house is located. So it's a simple building with a simple roof and a simple structure. It's of course an extension to an old residence. So the new requirements are only 2 bedrooms and a small lobby and the living dining space and the TV area. So the other facilities, of course the kitchen and all the other activities are happening in the old building. One major thing is this materiality. So the materials that we are using has a big impact on your well-being. So when, as and when you touch them, as and when you feel them onto your foot or maybe to your hand, so you will get that different feeling. And when it comes to the visual aspects also, the earthly materials, mostly the earthly materials will keep your stress out. Mostly that will help you to keep calm and do your daily activities, because that is happening psychologically without your knowledge. So if you are readily looking at a material, now for an example, if your entire house is completely white and all your furniture is white, just imagine all your light fittings, everything is completely white, all your fittings, fixtures and everything, and at the same time all your, maybe let's say your flowers are also white. So when by the period of time, so you will feel that psychological impact. That is something to do with without your knowledge. So having earthly materials is another aspect that you need to consider when selecting materials for your buildings. So that's why I just said this is a small building, small setup, and a simple building with the simple requirements. So as soon as you enter from the building, so you can see the dimensions that I discussed initially, the psychological and the mental well-being. So you can just go through when I pass through with the photo pictures. So there are reused items also in this building, as even our president highlighted. So as much as possible, most of the time these stone boulders were just landing outside the road. Maybe some road developer has just landed and went, but the usage of material creatively, you can create different spaces. At the same time you can use them in a different way for different activities. So you will witness how this bench, the stone bench, is functioning. So these are not dramatically elaborated. These are things just happening with the day. So the spaces are transforming with these objects. I am just allowing you to read out and get the proper feeling. I am not going to discuss on each and every picture. So this object is replaced by a grinder. So that is the lifestyle that we are facing nowadays. So that's why it's been used as a light fitting. Otherwise, this has a physical well-being aspect in our earlier ages, where everybody used to use this type of equipment in their daily lives, and so their physical fitness was good than us those days. Even most of these objects are found from the surrounding, like all the artifacts and elements. So not so these every object has a history and certain evolution with the period of time, and there has been many owners for each and every object. So that's why we call them antiques. So that's it, and end of my presentation. So I especially thank my partner and my wife, architect Kashani, for helping me out for this presentation and my work as well. So this is something finally you need to also think about. So this is you can understand what this picture is, and so what you seek is seeking you. So that's something for you to take home, and thank you very much.